0.27.
Whoa.
So if I move it over twice.
Oh, and you always move over twice.
Yeah, you always move over twice for that. Okay, now I need to multiply this by $1 365 times every day.
It's $0.
So what am I going to get? No, it shouldn't be that. It's $1.
$2.67.
$2.67? That's
Why
supposed.
did I? Because you didn't put the 1.
You didn't put the 1 in front of the 0.027. Yeah, it doesn't go away. Good call. Thank you. We still can do better, believe it or not. We can do better than this.
Wait, you mean hourly?
Hourly would be amazing, wouldn't it? How many hours in a day? What's 24 times? Okay, what's 24 times 365?
Oh my God, that's crazy. Oh wait, so you have to round 8,760.
Wait, 8,000.
760.
760.
That's a lot of hours.
It's a lot of hours.
You have to round 2.67 to 3.66.
Excellent. I actually thought it should be a little higher. Okay, we've got an 8-cent bump from that. Okay, I want to do this hourly now. I want to compound this every hour. Okay?
You're crazy.
So this is 8,760 times a year. I want to compound this.
So, how many?
Hang on, what's 100? My 100% interest. Divide that by 8,760. What do you get? 1.6. Okay, I'll round that. That means as a percentage, this is 0.000114. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I have to do now for compounded hourly.
No one is going to compound anything hourly. I would just like to point that out. Well, it goes up a lot.
It shouldn't go up too much.
$3.40. I think
Oh, that shouldn't be right.
This might be one of the only things you taught us this year that everyone is definitely needs to know.
Yes, actually, you're right. Well, 0. Wait, did I do that over?
You can use everything else in real life. You just have to go to a certain profession. I'm just saying this is the only thing where it applies to everyone all the time.
That's a good point. It's a very good point. That's not the number you should get. What do you get?
Hold on a second.
All right. Yeah, no, you're right, Maya. This is something people should know about. Except at this point, I've taken it to a level where I don't think you're going to ever find this.
Well, I mean, you're just showing us how to do it.
Yeah.
$2.71.
Perfect. That's what I wanted to hear. $2.71. And at this point, you've really hit the point of diminishing returns. Because I'll go ahead and tell you, without rounding, it won't ever hit 2.72. It'll round to 2.72, but it won't ever actually meet it. Now, this is one of the ways to actually derive the number E.
I thought it was, wasn't it?
Well, we'll get back to compound interest next week.
Wait, Mr. Bello, isn't it 1 over...
I know what you're thinking of.
I can't remember the pattern. But...
Yeah, there's a pattern to it that you've seen before. Okay, E is approximately 2.71828. And I'll tell you why I remember it out to that many digits. Because this is the Andrew Jackson constant. Because Andrew Jackson served 2 terms as the 7th president beginning in 1828. That's a total coincidence, but I'll take it to help remember.
Jackson was the president that created the Trail of Tears.
Yes. It's not a pleasant association.
The traders at the door.
Got a few more minutes. Are you done? Do you want the non-calculator page? Okay. All right. Go ahead and give me your calculator, and then I'll turn that in. Okay. That's E. Now, here you go. E is. You want to keep an eye on that for me? Let me not give it back to him. Okay. E. You know how pi shows up in every discussion of circles?
Yeah.
Okay, E shows up in every discussion of certain types of change. E is a number that shows up anytime something changes in proportion to how much you have. And it continues to change in proportion to how much you have. E will show up in discussions of population growth. E shows up in discussions of compound interest. There is something called continuous compound interest. And we'll get to that next week.
Does it show up in discussions of poison?
Yes. If the numbers aren't nice and neat, like on the poison test yesterday, then E will show up. E can describe anything that changes in proportion to how much you have. Now, if that's not the same thing as saying in proportion to how much you started with, because how much you have is always changing in the sort of situations you model with E. Population growth. Children grow up to have more children. Bacteria, amoebas in a dish, petri dish, subdivide to make more amoebas. Money makes more money if it's invested. E shows up in all these things. It also shows up in cases of decay. The decay of radioactive elements is the most common one.
Or poison.
So E, I sometimes honestly think E is God's favorite number. Here's what you're doing with the homework tonight. Okay? The homework tonight is just getting used to using E, not as a letter, but as a number that behaves just like any other number. So the homework tonight is things like, and everything with E shows up with exponents because it's all about growth and decay. So for examples from the homework tonight will just be some things like, what is e to the 5th times e cubed, for example?
Does our calculator have an E?
Yes, it does. This is just e to the 8th, as I'm sure Layla was about to say.
Oh, well, actually, I was going to say that E is the most commonly used letter in the English language.
And I have no idea if that's why it was chosen, actually. That's a good point. In some cases, what is e to the negative 5th going to be? 1 over e to the positive 5th. So it's really going to be a review of exponents tonight for the first part of the homework, but you're going to be using e and you're going to get used to using it. It's going to be kind of funny because it's going to be like you're using it like a variable, like x. But you got to remember always that it's an actual number, it has a value. This is just a shorthand for 2.71828. And we'll get back to the compound interest next week. Now, the second part of the homework is look at your calculators and you'll see an E button. Okay, there'll be an E button on there. I'm actually blanking on where it is. I'll take a look at Brandon's. On the TI-83 Plus, it is above the division sign. And it's in yellow, so you have to hit the second button.
I found that.
Cool.
There's also an EE.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Don't. It's the lowercase e. Thank you for noticing that one, though. Well, there's two of them. Thank you. There's E is above the division sign, and if you just hit that, Brandon's batteries are really low, and hit enter, it'll just give you the 2.71828. There's also an E to the X button on your calculator. And when you press the E to the X button, it automatically goes E hatch mark, and you can plug something in. The second part of your homework is using a calculator to solve things like, I don't know, what is E to the 7th power? So you can either hit E hatch mark 7th yourself, or you can use the E to the X button. And either way, what is E to the 7th power? 1096.63. 1096.63.
So if you hit E to the X and you don't do a hash mark and you put 7?
Yeah, just a shortcut. And why that shortcut is in that spot, we'll learn next week. It's actually an inverse of what's going on below it. So tonight's homework is really just as simple as what's on this board. You got to remember how negative exponents behave. On where it says, listen carefully to this, on where it says don't use your calculator, I expect your answers to look like this or this. In other words, still have E in them. Where it says use your calculator, I expect to see numbers and decimals and no E's left. Okay? So you can't use your calculator on this. Homework is posted. It is page 483. $20 to $60 every fourth.